So let's see if we're live or not. Here's a request, and I don't expect an overwhelming response, but I do expect let's go for three three people to respond back in a video file or an audio file of what they're doing with the F sharp programming language. Specifically, I, I want to know and I want to share with the community and also mainstream programmers that are doing Java, C sharp, Ruby, if that's still a thing, JavaScript. Like, I want to share like how functional programming languages, I'm sorry, are still like general purpose languages, and you can use it to build products and services. So here's the here's a call for action, right? And again, I'm aiming for like minimum three, and I believe that I could get three people to respond using some media format. What are you building with the F sharp language, regardless of if it's your passion project that you're working on a product or a service, or it's your 9 to 5 and it's you're gainfully employed writing this code. Like, what are you building? That's all. So for me, I'm building, and the code isn't the prettiest right now. I think this is where I could use Scott Vlashin's railroad oriented programming, but I'm building a mobile fulfillment system, mobile order fulfillment system. And so basically, when someone orders some food, at least the first stage, then using Azure Service Bus and Azure Storage as the backend tools, a courier that is subscribed to the system gets notified and they have an opportunity to fulfill that order. And I'm integrating with the Stripe API, I'm integrating with Twilio, I'm integrating with, I feel like there's another vendor tool that I'm using that I can't just figure out outside of Azure. But Stripe, Twilio, I forget what the other vendor tool is, but I'm basically doing mobile order fulfillment. And so if there's anything that I've learned during this experience, well, one is I started April 6th, 2 years ago. And so what was that, April 6th, 2019, I think. Um, what I've learned is a couple things. Is one, I've never had so much practice as well as a dependency on F sharp's async construct. Right. I use it everywhere. Um, so that's one. And so when I say async, this async block right here. And then if you wanted to interrupt or play nice with C sharp, then always have to pipe that construct into start as task so that my C sharp client is able to integrate with any of these requests. And so an example of that is, I don't know, create account. This is C sharp code, and we see account dot new courier, which is essentially what we just saw right over here. Okay. Um, so that's one thing that I found. Well, I'm not sure if I want to say useful. It's one thing that I had no choice but to integrate into my discipline is having a a basic foundation in using F sharp's async. The other part, which I'm a hardcore fan of, is function signatures. So whether this can be called type level programming or domain modeling, basically relying on the compiler to enforce your business policies for the product or the service that you're going to build. Okay. And so I have this notion of a specification library. And for any like subsystem of the overall system that I'm building, it has its own spec library. And these spec libraries are very abstract and they have their own interpreters, which are typically these data gateway libraries. And so, one practice that I found that I've never really got out of C sharp or any other object oriented programming language is to, well, just do type level programming or domain modeling. And before I write like conditional code, I'm basically declaring all the contracts that are going to be in my implementation or the required contracts of my implementation. And so you can look at this as business equations, right? Or business policies that the compiler is going to enforce. And so never before have I actually viewed the compiler as like the police of my code base in which it enforces policies, else it just won't compile. And so that's another takeaway that I got from functional programming and specifically F sharp. So one is within F sharp, the async construct and me being forced to use it and integrate it with C sharp clients. Two is my reliance, possibly over reliance on declared function types or function signatures, in which we see that with a spec library, aka specification library, every function that I implement an interpreter for will rely on this abstraction or this contract. There's a third one. I said async. I said specification library. Um, Maybe an appreciation for pattern matching. I'm not sure if I could find a good example just off the fly, but do I have any good examples? This is a courier payroll system. I thought I just wrote something earlier that I can't find right now. That's a CS file. Give me a second. I thought there was like a maybe not. So off the fly, I can't find any examples of what's this over here, which just gave me a light bulb. So while I try to find an example of, in which I'm still not seeing it, of pattern matching, I find pattern matching in F sharp pretty valuable because I'm able to, I believe, more easily generate appropriate error messages just based on the patterns, the pattern of a value. And unfortunately, I'm not able to find a good example right now. But using pattern matching, and for example, if you perform an operation, it should only return one item. So I'm not going to go too deep into details, but you perform an operation where you want to retrieve in the database some value, and it should only be one occurrence, right? Then I find that it can be useful to generate error messages by using pattern matching, and you can pattern match based on converting that sequence, if that's the default type that you're using, into a list. And then on that list, basically identify the various patterns where you expect one. Then the end part of that head is a tail, and you return in the sync result of okay. But then the other patterns, such as empty or any results that have multiple entries, then you can write a relevant error message. In addition to that, something else that I just realized is I actually learned how to implement a event store. So because this is dealing with financial transactions, I log every historical event within this product that I'm building. So I've implemented an event store on top of Azure, meaning that it's theoretically a immutable database. And that was something that was a pretty cool exercise for me to do, and I rely on it a lot because now I'm doing what is it called? event streaming. I forget what the actual verbiage is, but I'm actually relying on this event stream and I have different types of event streams to hydrate the state for data that I need to transition from in regards to various workflows. So yeah, implemented an event store on top of Azure Service Bus, and that's actually on my GitHub. It's public, and so let me see real fast. If you go to my GitHub Bismonger account, there should be a like a event store event. Yeah, there's an Azure event store that's it's open to the public, and you guys can check that out. And that's a product of what I've built using this. What I'm trying to emphasize, a general purpose programming language called F Sharp. So I mentioned that I was forced to understand the basics of async. I mentioned that pattern matching is very helpful for returning proper error messages. I've mentioned that I integrated with Twilio and Stripe APIs. Yeah, what else have I done? Is there anything else that I've done that I can share that F Sharp can actually be used as a general purpose programming language to build products and services? I can't think of anything else off the top of my head. Let me just quickly look through some of the other repository solutions that I have: bank card transactions, courier payroll. Yeah, I think I'll leave it right there. So, call to action. I'm really curious. I, I'm hoping that I could get at least 3 media responses, whether they're audio or video, in which people can share how they're using the F Sharp programming language, and it's not a data scientist type programming language, in which it's okay if that's what you're using it for. But I just want to learn and share how in 2021 we really have an opportunity to leverage the proper tools that reduce the noise of building systems of value. And so that's it. I'm sharing this. I'm about to post it on Twitter, and I hope to get some responses. Again, I'm reaching out for three minimum, and adios. Thanks. Take care. Stop screen and broadcast.